They smiled at your face and stabbed you the moment you turned around. You worked harder than everyone in that room. You were more loyal, more honest, more committed. And still, someone with half your talent walked away with what was yours. That didn't happen because the world is unfair. It happened because you were playing a game you didn't know the rules to. There is a type of intelligence that no school teaches, no mentor mentions it, no motivational speaker puts it on a poster. It's born in silence, forged in the moments when you got betrayed, overlooked, and underestimated. Machiavelli understood it 500 years ago. The powerful have used it ever since. It's not cruelty, it's not manipulation, it's clarity. And today, you're going to get it. Before we go deeper, drop this in the comments right now. I move in silence. I think before I react. I play the long game. Now let's begin. Never let people see the full picture. Most people think being open builds trust. It doesn't. It builds vulnerability. When you tell people everything, your plans, your fears, your next move, you hand them a map to your mind. And maps can be used against you just as easily as they can guide you. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." Think about the most powerful people you've ever encountered. They weren't loud. They weren't constantly explaining themselves. There was always something just out of reach, a layer you couldn't quite get to. And that layer, it commanded your attention. It earned your respect before they even spoke. That's not an accident. That's architecture. Here's the shift you need to make. Stop feeling obligated to fill every silence with information about yourself. When someone asks about your next move, smile, pause, say just enough. Let their imagination do the rest. Because here's the truth about human psychology. What people imagine is almost always bigger, more impressive, and more intimidating than the reality. When you stay partially hidden, you become larger in people's minds than you could ever be if they knew everything. Your words become rare, and rare things are always more valuable. This isn't about lying. It's about understanding that your information is currency, and smart people don't empty their wallets for strangers. Become a different version of yourself for every room you enter. Water doesn't argue with the container it fills. It simply adjusts, and in doing so, it goes everywhere. The most dangerous communicators alive aren't the loudest ones. They're the ones who can walk into any room, read the energy in 30 seconds, and become exactly what that room needs them to be. This isn't weakness. This isn't being fake. This is mastery. You already do a version of this naturally. You speak differently to your parents than you do to your closest friends. You carry yourself differently in a boardroom than you do at a backyard cookout. What dangerously smart people do is make this intentional. Study the person in front of you before you open your mouth. Are they driven by logic? Give them data. Are they moved by emotion? Speak to their feelings. Do they hunger for respect? Give them acknowledgement before you give them ideas. Machiavelli understood that a strategist must present himself as merciful, faithful, honest, or whatever the situation demands, not because he is always all of those things, but because he knows when each quality opens the right door. Here's the line that separates strategy from deception. Your core never changes. Your values, your principles, your integrity, those are fixed. What adapts is your expression. The message stays the same. You simply change the language it's delivered in. A diamond has many facets. Each one catches the light differently, but underneath, it is still one unbreakable stone. The moment you stop needing something, you own it. This is the lesson that separates the manipulators from the free. Every form of control, every form of leverage that someone has over you is rooted in one thing: your fear of losing something. Your job, their approval, the relationship, the deal, the feeling of being liked. The second someone senses that fear in you, they have you. They don't even need to threaten you explicitly. The threat lives in your own mind, and you do their work for them. Machiavelli said it plainly: it is far safer to be feared than loved when you cannot have both. Not because love is worthless, but because fear of losing love makes you controllable, and the controllable never lead, they follow. Now imagine two people sitting across a negotiation table. One needs this deal. They've already committed emotionally. The outcome is already woven into their plans. The other would like this deal, but has 3 others on the table. They'll stand up and walk away before they compromise too much. Who has the power? The one who can walk away. Every time. This doesn't mean caring about nothing. It means caring without desperation. It means choosing your relationships, your work, your commitments, and remaining whole with or without them. The paradox of detachment is this: the less you need something, the more naturally it moves toward you. People chase the confident, they avoid the desperate. The universe, too, seems to favor the unbothered. Start small. Stop needing to win every disagreement. Stop needing every person in the room to like you. Notice what changes. Notice how people begin to look at you differently because they can feel that you cannot be easily bent. That feeling is called respect, and it only grows in free people. The most powerful moves are the ones nobody sees coming. Let's kill a myth right now. Power is not loud. Weak men shout. They make demands. They pound tables and issue ultimatums. And for a moment, it looks like strength. But watch what happens over time. People work around them. They resist them privately. They leave the moment a better option appears. Real power doesn't announce itself. It arranges. Silent leverage is the art of building influence so quietly, so patiently, that by the time anyone notices, it's already done. Here's how it operates. In a conversation, silence is a weapon. Most people panic when nobody speaks. They rush to fill the void with words, and those words reveal everything. When you sit comfortably in silence, you pull information out of people without asking a single question. In a negotiation, your willingness to walk away, not your threat to walk away, is what shifts the dynamic. You don't say it, they feel it. In your career, silent leverage is the quiet accumulation of being useful. Being the person problems get solved around, being the name that comes up when something matters. You don't announce that reputation, you build it, one delivered promise at a time. Machiavelli wrote, "Never was anything great achieved without danger." But the greatest achievements are always made quietly, in the spaces between the noise, while everyone else is distracted performing. Plant seeds, wait, tend to them. The harvest always comes for patient hands. Make people feel seen, and they will follow you. Anywhere. Let me tell you something that most people never figure out. Influence has almost nothing to do with what you say. It has everything to do with how you make people feel while you're saying it. Behind every confident exterior, every tough negotiator, every guarded stranger you've ever met, there is a person carrying something invisible. A need they've never said out loud. A wound they've never shown anyone, a question they've been silently asking every room they've walked into, hoping someone would finally answer it. And that question is never just one question, it's 3. Do you see me? Do you understand me? Do I matter to you? Most people in this world will go their entire lives without anyone truly answering yes to all 3. That is not a small thing. That is the quiet tragedy underneath most human behavior. The aggression, the withdrawal, the overcompensating, the performing. Almost all of it traces back to someone who never felt genuinely seen. The person who can answer those 3 questions, not with speeches, not with grand gestures, but through simple, sustained attention and presence, holds more real influence than any title, any authority, any position of power ever could, because titles command compliance. But being truly seen creates devotion, and devotion is voluntary. It cannot be forced. It can only be earned. Machiavelli understood that men judge by what they feel far more than by what they analyze. Logic reaches the mind. Emotion reaches the person. What people carry away from an interaction with you, the feeling in their chest when they think about you later, that is what determines everything. Not your credentials, not your argument, not how right you were, the feeling. This is psychological echo, and it is one of the rarest, most powerful skills a human being can develop. Here is where most people fail. They listen to respond. They are already building their reply while you are still speaking. They are half present, nodding, waiting, preparing, but not actually receiving what you are giving them. And people feel that absence. They may not name it, but they feel it, and it closes them. Dangerously smart people listen to understand. Completely different posture, completely different result. When you listen to truly understand, you stop hearing only the words and start hearing what lives underneath them. The fear underneath the complaint, the insecurity underneath the confidence, the longing underneath the indifference, the real message hiding inside the surface message. When someone tells you they hate their job, the average person reaches for advice. Send your resume here. Try LinkedIn. Have you thought about a career change? Useful maybe, but it misses the person entirely. A strategist pauses, listens deeper, and hears what was actually said. I feel invisible there. I feel like my best is being wasted. I feel like nobody in that building actually sees what I'm capable of. And when you reflect that back, when you say the thing they felt but couldn't find words for, something remarkable happens. They go still. Their eyes change. And for a moment, they look at you the way people look at someone who just performed a miracle. You didn't perform a miracle. You just paid attention when everyone else was too busy talking. That moment of recognition, of truly being seen, creates a bond that logic cannot build and time alone cannot manufacture. It creates loyalty, real loyalty, the kind that doesn't evaporate when something better comes along, the kind that remembers you years later. The kind that says, that person understood me when no one else did. And here is the part that makes this skill ethical rather than manipulative. When you use this to genuinely serve someone, when your goal is to understand what they truly need and help them move toward it, you are not using them. You are leading them, quietly, powerfully, in the direction of something better. They will not just remember what you helped them accomplish. They will remember how you made them feel like it was possible. And that stays forever. Real-world ethics are never black and white. Here is where most people get uncomfortable. Good. The world does not operate in neat moral categories. Anyone who tells you otherwise has never been responsible for anything that truly mattered. They've never had to make a call where every option had a cost. They've never stood in a room where being right and being kind were pointing in completely opposite directions. Those people give advice from the bleachers. You're on the field. Different rules apply. Machiavelli was not a villain. He was a realist. He watched idealists get destroyed by pragmatists over and over, generation after generation. And instead of looking away, he wrote down exactly what he saw. That's why powerful people have studied him for 5 centuries. Not because he taught cruelty, but because he told the truth when everyone else was performing virtue. Pragmatic ethics, what some call ambiguous morality, is not the absence of values. It is the maturity to understand that the right action in a complex situation is almost never the comfortable one. Comfort is for simple situations. When the stakes are real and the people involved are real, comfort becomes a luxury you cannot always afford. Sometimes the kind thing to do causes lasting damage. Sometimes the harsh thing to do prevents it. Let that sit. A leader who protects a dishonest team member out of misplaced kindness, while the rest of the team watches, suffers, and loses trust, has not been moral. They've been cowardly. And they dressed that cowardice up as mercy so they could sleep at night. A friend who tells you only what you want to hear while you walk directly into a disaster, that is not friendship. That is someone choosing their own comfort over your actual well-being. Softness that enables destruction is not kindness, it is abandonment with a smile. Real ethical intelligence cuts through all of that noise and asks one question, the only question that actually matters. What outcome does this actually produce? Not, how does this decision make me look? Not, will people applaud this choice or criticize it? But what happens to real people in the real world as a direct result of what I choose to do right now? That question is harder to answer than it sounds. because sometimes the answer requires you to carry weight that no one else can see, to act without applause, to be misunderstood by people who only see the surface of what you did, to choose what is right over the long distance instead of what feels good in the moment. That is the burden of people who actually lead, of people who actually matter, of people who are remembered not for how they looked while deciding, but for what their decisions built. Know your non-negotiable lines. There are things you never do. Full stop. No exception. No justification. Hold those lines with everything you have. But within those boundaries, give yourself full permission to be strategic, to be pragmatic, to be effective in the way the real world genuinely demands, not the way a motivational quote on a wall suggests. Because here is the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to say out loud. The person who refuses to engage with moral complexity, who keeps their hands clean and their conscience comfortable while real situations demand hard choices, often causes more damage than the person willing to get their hands dirty making the call that needed to be made. Staying clean is not the same as doing good. Effectiveness is not the opposite of integrity. It is integrity in action, under pressure, when it costs something. That is the only kind that matters. Stop trying to win the room. Start trying to win. Here is the most brutal truth in this entire script. Sit with it. Most people are not actually trying to succeed. They are trying to look like they are succeeding. And those are not the same game. They are not even played on the same field. One requires you to produce something real. The other only requires you to manage perception. And for a while, sometimes a long while, managing perception works. People get promotions, they get praise, they get followers and titles and rooms full of applause. And then reality shows up, and reality does not care about your image. One path produces results, the other produces applause. And applause does not pay your bills. Applause does not build your legacy. Applause does not show up when the pressure is real and the margin is thin, and what is needed is not a performance but a solution. The moment something truly difficult is required, applause evaporates, and the person who spent years chasing it is left with nothing but a reputation they cannot cash. This is the trap, and almost everyone falls into it at some point. Outcome obsession is the discipline, and it is a discipline. It requires daily practice of caring only about what actually happens, not how you appear while it happens, not whether the room is impressed by your effort, not whether your process looks rigorous or your intentions look pure. Just, what is the result? What actually changed? What actually moved? Machiavelli understood this at the deepest level. He wrote that the promise made in the past was a necessity of that moment, meaning what you committed to when circumstances were different is not sacred simply because you said it. What matters is what you do now, in front of the real conditions in front of you, with the real information available to you today. Not what you pledged when everything felt simpler and the cost wasn't clear yet. That is not dishonesty, that is wisdom. The world shifts. Smart people shift with it. It all begins with one question, a question most people never actually stop to ask. What am I truly trying to achieve here? Not in this argument, not in this meeting, not in this particular moment of ego or emotion, but in the real, deep, lasting sense. What outcome am I genuinely working toward? What does winning actually look like when all the noise settles? When you make that question the foundation of every decision, something powerful happens. Clarity arrives. You stop fighting battles that have nothing to do with your mission. You stop burning energy defending positions your ego chose instead of your strategy. You stop pouring weeks into work that feels productive that produces nothing, and wondering in quiet moments why nothing seems to change. Because here is what outcome obsession reveals that most people never see. You can work extremely hard and go absolutely nowhere. Effort without direction is not progress. It is expensive motion. It looks like dedication from the outside. It feels like dedication from the inside. But the scoreboard doesn't measure your effort. It measures your output. Outcome obsession makes you what I call strategically selective. You become almost ruthless about where your time and energy go. The 20% of your actions that drive 80% of your real results, you find them, you guard them, you do them before anything else. Everything that doesn't serve the outcome gets less of you, not because you're lazy, because you understand that your attention is finite and your goals are not. And when something stops working, you don't defend it, you don't explain it, you don't double down to prove you weren't wrong for trying it. You pivot cleanly, without drama, because your attachment is to the destination, never to the route. That kind of flexibility, that freedom from ego around your own methods, makes you nearly impossible to stop. Every obstacle becomes a reroute. Every failure becomes data. Over time, this builds the single most valuable reputation a person can carry. You deliver. Not you tried your best. Not you meant well. Not you worked around the clock and gave everything you had. Those are consolation narratives. Nobody builds a legacy on them. You delivered. It got done. You said it would happen, and it happened. When that is what people know about you, when that is the sentence that follows your name into every room before you arrive, something shifts permanently. Opportunities stop needing to be chased. Partnerships come looking for you. Problems worth solving get brought to your door because people have learned, through experience, that you are the person who turns intention into reality. Doors open, not the doors you knocked on, doors you never even knew existed. 7 lessons, ancient wisdom, modern application, calculated silence, adaptive presence, fearless detachment, quiet leverage, deep listening, pragmatic ethics, relentless focus on results. These are not tricks, they are not shortcuts. They are the operating system of every dangerously smart person who has ever navigated a world that did not hand them anything easily. And here is the final truth Machiavelli left for us, hidden between every line he ever wrote. The greatest power you can possess is not power over others. It is power over yourself, your reactions, your fears, your need for approval, your attachment to outcomes you cannot control. Master those, and the external world begins to bend. Use what you've learned to protect yourself, not to harm others. To create better outcomes, not just better positions. To become someone who cannot be manipulated, not someone who manipulates. That is the difference between intelligence and wisdom. That is the difference between dangerous and dangerously good. Now, drop a comment and tell me, which of these 7 lessons hit you hardest? And which one are you putting into practice starting today? If this shifted how you think, hit like. If you want more content on psychology, strategy, and the kind of thinking powerful people actually use, subscribe. Ring the bell. You know why. Until next time, stay sharp, stay strategic, stay sovereign.